Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life Administration Podcast. This is, in fact, episode 33.
Excellent. He had to just check. We had to do a restart because he had to check. I'm still impressed that he's bothered to keep up with the number of episodes that we have because it's actually more than that. Because remember, for a while there before the pandemic, we did Twitter Thursdays.
Yes, we had about a dozen.
So we've actually got...
Yes,
we got a lot.
There's 32 episodes before this one, so now we're at 33. My name is Ryan Taylor, by the way.
And I'm Leslie Loftus. Hello, everybody.
Hi, guys. And I'd be remiss. I just want to mention really quickly. So we had made a decision before we get into it. We had made a decision to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to really sort of jump in the statistics. We have just sort of been like, hey, we're just going to kind of keep recording. We're not going to really worry about what's going on because
helps that our information is totally evergreen. It doesn't really depend much on what's going on at any given week. There are still people that need to know how mortgages work and how to run a household budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that has been watching, listening, downloading. The numbers are in the thousands, and it sort of blows me away to think that
he just checked today because we needed to look at something.
Yep.
And he's like, oh,
it was surprising.
Pleasantly surprised. Yes.
I was ready for doom and gloom, but I was surprised. So thank you. So I'll get this out of the way at first. If you're learning something, if you feel like the information is helpful, just, tell a friend, share, subscribe, do all the things, it really helps us out. And it has been helping us out because I think, for me anyway, I'm starting to realize the wake that we're leaving. Words matter,
right?
And format matters, and the things that we're teaching matters, and so much so that we were even tweeting this week about someone that had like all of these things that they wish people would learn in school.
Right. Well, somebody on Twitter asked the question, like, since we've had a lot of time during the pandemic to teach particularly children life skills, what are the kind of things that you're glad you taught the children during the pandemic? What do you think that they still need to know? That sort of stuff. And as the response, because she got, on near 100 responses.
Yes.
And as they're going through, we're like, oh, that's pretty much our table of contents.
We might be onto something here.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So
very, very cool. So it was very encouraging for us. And so anyway, let's get started.
Let's get started.
So
exactly.
last week we talked about, really the past 2 weeks, we talked about how to buy a home, the process of that, right? And I think when I was listening back and editing to it, the last episode I was sort of
Ryan.
I was like
the mortgage episode we had. He probably got all of them, but we had dogs. We had a child argument breakout downstairs. We had the mailman arrive. We had the yard guys outside with blowers. I mean, it was...
And you would never know. Like it sounds great.
Well done.
Everything is good.
So he had a lot of time to listen to this episode.
I did get to listen to it back in
detail
a few times, we'll say. And especially towards the end, I started getting a little bit depressed, maybe is another word for it. Like I kind of got down on myself a little bit because I felt like I hadn't prepared my family the right way. Maybe that maybe we don't have enough money saved up. And like I said, there was some personal things that are kind of coming up now that, I'm reading the tea leaves was the phrase that I was using, that things are going to be different. And a week's gone by, and it's been really good to kind of like refocus. And Leslie kind of gave me some options off the air that I was thinking about as well, that sort of pertain to my personal situation. Everyone's situation is a little bit different. Regardless, I think the episode that we have today is a great transition to, I wish that I had maybe heard this a little bit a couple years ago.
Back when you were 21.
Yeah, back when I was 21. So we have an episode early on, I think it's even episode 2.
Right.
Where it's Money 101. And so today we've decided Money 102, right? You just heard about the things that you need to do to buy a house. Well,
and you've got the basics in Money 101. We cover things like household budgets and stuff, and basics like credit card and compound interest.
Yep.
But there are two really big things in there.
So we're moving to Money 102, and the question of the day:
Credit or debit?
Credit or debit. And then we're going to add in some stuff about checking accounts because they are still relevant as far as checks and things like that. Right. You know, still got to write out the check, still got to know how to do it.
Occasionally, there's a few businesses that still, bless them, only take checks.
Yep. And also, too, that sometimes...
I ran into one last week.
Yeah. And sometimes there are fees associated, convenience fees associated with using a credit card or a debit card. And there sometimes isn't with an e-check, right?
Correct.
So it's a valuable skill. So anyway, we're going to get going. We're going to jump into segment 1, credit cards. If I could go back, right? And I think I've shared this story before, but I somehow at 18 years old got approved for a credit card that had a $5,000 limit on it.
And a man at 18 years old in the 80s, that was money. When
you can go into a CD store, right? Or Suncoast Video or FYE, whatever it was, and you wanted to get, I think it was like a Goo Goo Dolls album, Dizzy Up the Girl, right? I want this CD. I swiped the card. I walked out. I was like it was free.
Exactly.
It's not free, Leslie.
It's not free.
It's not free.
It's not even close to free. As a matter of fact, if you do it with a credit card, by the time you're done with it, you paid,
yep.
I have air quotes here for those who aren't watching. You paid $10 for that CD. I'm trying to remember what CDs cost back in the day.
It's like $16.99, I think.
$16.99.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. By the time you would have done interest and everything, you paid $25 for that CD. You played double price. Easy.
I think I paid more than that. I think I paid more than that. All right. So enough fooling around. Give us the basics. So here we go.
Credit cards are the quicker, easier, more seductive form of financial management.
That's the truth.
Yes, they really, really are. Okay, it sounds simple enough. You reach the age of majority, you're 18 years old, you're either going to college or you're starting work or whatever, and you will start to get bombarded with credit card offers. And they sound awesome. Like you said, you're the 18-year-old guy in 1989. What?
No.
Something. No. That's me. That's me. Sorry.
1999.
1999. I'm 10 years off. All right. So, you're the 18-year-old guy going in, and $5,000 is a whole, because that's not a high credit limit, but credit card companies offer this because they're going to charge you a lot of money to borrow that $5,000. Okay, so when you get the application and you apply for the card, the credit card company will do a quick credit check on you. Now, if you are the young 18-year-old, you don't have any credit yet. This is one of the reasons I would recommend that you go ahead and get a credit card or two. That's it, 1 or 2. Because you do need to start building credit. But as we'll go through here, I'm going to recommend that you use it like a charge card or a debit card. We'll get into those terms as a second. Don't use it as a credit card. Don't use it to borrow money. Okay, because that's what they want you to do. They say, we will give you a credit limit of, let's do $10,000, make it a little more realistic for today.
Okay, yeah, sure.
We'll give you a credit limit of $10,000. With that credit limit, we will also tell you, we might have a introductory offer. Anyway, hold on. So you have the limit of $10,000, which is how much you can borrow. And they will give you an interest rate.
For the first year.
Yes. And that is what they will charge you for what you borrow. But interest rate comes in different. First of all, they most likely have a promotional interest rate, and the best ones are 0. And it sounds like free money, right? So for the first 12 months, you have a 0% APR, annual percentage rate. Okay. So you're not going to pay any interest on how much money you charge and how much money you borrow for the first year. And that sounds awesome. It's not. We'll get into that in a second. Because after the promotional rate is done, then you have your regular rate. Credit card rates are absolutely obnoxious.
Astronomical.
Astronomical. We're talking 18%. 15 to 18% is going to be a good credit card rate. 24% is going to be more typical. I've seen them as high as like approaching 30 or right around 30. Mm-hmm. So they are going to. So if you charge $100 and you don't pay that $100 that month, then the next month you owe 130. Essentially,
yes.
There's some fees and stuff like that, and that make the math not quite that straightforward. But we're going to do it that way. Then the next month, let's say you don't charge anything else and you just charge that $100 and you didn't pay it off, and then they charged you the 30% on it. So now you owe $130. Well, now they're going to charge you 30% on the $130, right? It's called compounding. So this is what you hear about compound interest, why it gets, so if you don't pay off the principal, it keeps growing. It keeps growing. And it's nasty. So after you were done with the promotional rate, which is usually 6 to 12 months, you get into the regular rate, which is 18 to 24%, typically, which is awful.
It's all, yeah.
We're talking usury levels of it's terrible. Now, the credit card will also come up with a minimum balance that you have to pay each month. This also sounds enticing. So the credit card company, have given you $10,000 of a credit limit, and you go off the first month and you spend $1,000. When you get your bill, it's going to say the minimum amount due. Okay. The minimum amount due is usually basically the amount of interest plus a tiny bit of principal. Okay.
Very small bit.
Very small bit. I mean, different cards do it different ways, but as a practical matter, it tends to come out as you're paying mostly interest, which means this thing is acting like a balloon note. So you're keep charging up to, let's say you get to the 12 months of the end of your, and you've been paying the minimum amount each time. So, you charged $1,000 the first time. So maybe it's 1% that they charge. So you paid $10 or $100 that first month, and you paid $120 the next month, et cetera. As we go. So over the course of a year, you have paid maybe $2,000, but you still owe all of the principal. You haven't paid off a bit of the principal. And by the way, now that we're at the end of the annual percentage rate, enticing thing. Now you really need to pay off all of it. So it doesn't help you just to pay off the minimum rate. As a matter of fact, it just puts your cash load much. It delays the time that you actually have to pay off all the cash.
Yes.
And it can also delay the time that you have to pay off all the cash until it has gotten so big that it's a mountain of money due that there's no way you can dig yourself out of it. So, and that can happen how quickly, Ryan?
Too quickly. Too quickly. I mean, so anecdotally, that card, I was 18. I bought CDs. I went and bought paintball equipment, bought computer stuff.
Necessities, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Total necessities.
Right.
We're not talking food and rent here.
Yeah. Because it felt so easy. And I was like, of course I can pay this off. Long story short, I didn't pay it off, right? And I was paying that card probably for like 6 or 7 years after I had it. I mean, it was...
For Goo Goo Doll CDs.
Yes. Yeah. I really did love that album, but I didn't love it that much.
Didn't love it that much.
Oh my gosh. So here's my unsolicited advice to our listeners. Do you need a credit card? Absolutely. 100%.
Emphasis on A.
What's that?
Emphasis on A.
Yes. And I will tell you, if I could go back in time, I would look at myself and I go, do a little research, and you'll find that there are secured credit cards and that there are unsecured credit cards. Now, let me tell you the difference about a secure credit card and an unsecured credit card. A secure credit card, you actually pay for. You say, okay, bank, I want a credit card for, and again, because this is under the idea of building credit, right? We're trying to build credit for the future. I actually only need a credit card for $500. Like, what else do you need it for? You know, if you're 18 to 24 years old, you don't need a lot of credit, but you go out and you say, you take,
you want to build some because one day you're going to want to buy a house and it's going to come up in your credit report.
Exactly. And you want to buy a car, you're going to get better APR there. There's a million reasons why you want to have great credit. So you go to the bank and you say, hey, you know what? I do want a credit card, but since this is a secured credit card, I have to give the bank $500 up front. Bang, here I go. And guess what? Now that is my credit limit. So you're already invested into the card, right? You're already mentally thinking, I've already given $500 to this bank. And so now I do it differently, whereas an unsecured credit card just feels like free money.
Okay, this is the first time I've heard secured and unsecured credit card because I'd call that a debit card.
Well, I think of a debit card as the thing that's attached to my credit, my checking account.
That's a charge card.
That's a charge card.
Okay, now we're getting, and here, there's another thing. We're getting into some of the terminology, and better yet, it's not as set as you might think. Because yes, the debit cards are the secured credit cards, exactly the way to go. And we're going to hit that in segment 2.
Well, good. Because this is a nice little segue. That's what I'm doing here.
It is a nice little segue. Okay. But then back to credit cards. If you don't pay your minimum balance, not only are you letting that principal grow, but if you can't pay the minimum, then they move into the penalty interest rates. So there's actually 3 forms of interest rate. You have your promotional interest rate, your actual interest rate, and your penalty interest rate. If you get into the penalty interest rate, all of the stuff that we just talked about the debt growing really fast. Now it's just going to grow faster.
Yep.
Excellent. Which if you couldn't pay the minimums, if you hit the penalty interest rate for anything other than just a mistake, you just missed the day of payment. And these days that shouldn't be that difficult because you can set up auto drafts through your bank accounts. That's, you're never going to be able to, well, not never going to be able to pay. It's very, very difficult to get back on top if you're hitting the penalty interest
absolutely.
rates.
And so there might be some folks listening out there that have already, they're like, cool information. Wish I had it 5 years ago.
Yep.
Okay. And so, you miss some payments, you're having a hard time, and then your cell phone starts ringing, right? The bank is calling nonstop. And you sort of get this, and this is, again, a personal anecdote from me. You start feeling shame, I think is the word. You start feeling unworthy that, and so you're dodging phone calls, you're getting the pink slips in the mail, and you're ripping up. Okay. And so here's what I want to tell you. If you're listening and you're in that spot right now, you got to do a 180 and you got to face the music.
Yep.
And it feels terrible, but I promise you that after you make the first phone call, you start working out whatever it looks like, the payment schedule, whatever. Everyone's situation is different, but you do the about face, you deal with it head on. That anxiety that you feel when your phone rings and you don't know the phone number, all of a sudden starts to go away. And I think that does a lot mentally for you. Your mindset has to be different. Don't run from financial problems. I think a lot of people have a tendency to run from financial problems. I know that I did for a while.
And they feel insurmountable. So you're running from them because you just don't think that there's any possible way you could get on top of this.
Yep.
You've done the basic back of the envelope, quick calculation of the math and had your oh crap moment. And so just like you're going to run from it because really it feels like your only option. It is not your only option. It can't be your only option. And the more you run from it, the worse it's going to get because the big player in this math is time.
Yep.
Is time. So the faster you turn around and confront it, the better it is going, the easier it's going to be. Even for notice on easier, it's not going to be easy.
No.
It will be much easier than if you wait another 2 months.
Yep.
Go ahead, face it, get it done.
Yep. And oh, by the way, this is one of the life skills that we talk about is being able to pick up the phone and call and get on the phone with these folks, because an email is not going to convey what your spirit is, what your heart is, what you're trying to accomplish. Right? If you're able to get on the phone, treat people with respect, speak kindly, you'd be surprised that all of a sudden, you know what, that interest rate that was so high, we'll forgive that. That late payment, we'll forgive that. There are things.
They actually, in the end, they make their money by getting paid. So they're charging you exorbitant, huge rate. You know what? If they were charging you 24% and now they're just going to charge you 15% on it, well, that makes a huge difference to you. To them, it's just a little bit less money coming. You'd be surprised at how much they might be willing to deal, especially if you start to tackle it early on.
Yeah, absolutely. So moral of the story, turn around, get in front of it, drop the shame at the door, drop the unworthiness at the door. It feels insurmountable, but it's not, because time goes by so quickly. And if you just start plugging away, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're in a completely different spot.
Right. When you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah,
There's not another option.
Exactly.
Not another option. So if you aren't in that situation of you've already gotten, so how do you handle a credit card? All right. So when you get your credit card statement, so you've applied for the card, you found a good one, maybe you did find an early one with a lower interest rate at the beginning, and perhaps you want to do the advice like we mentioned just a minute ago of using it more like a debit card. So basically you want to pay it off every month. So you're going to get your statement in, and your statement has a couple of options for paying. One is your statement balance. The second is your current balance, and I'll explain those. The third is the minimum balance that we just talked about. And then there's others. There's fees and stuff like that can go into it. Okay. Statement balance and current balance. All right. This is kind of a relic of, the old analog days. So let's say your statement ran from the 5th of every month to the 5th of every month, but then it takes time for the company to print out the statements and to put them in the mail. So if your statement ended on the 5th of every month, you probably didn't get that bill in the mail until, say, the 10th or the 15th. Okay? So in between those 10 days, you've probably charged some other things.
Shocking.
Right. And especially if you're using it as your primary source, because you don't want to carry cash. Because here's the other thing, this is, by the way, a little bit before we'll get into cash apps in a second. I've also got those in. But you don't want to carry cash. So you're using your credit card as your main form of, paying for things, everything from groceries to Goo Goo Dolls CDs. And
never going to live that one down.
Hey, Goo Goo Dolls are fine.
Yeah.
So your statement balance is the 5th to the 5th, the amount of money that you charged from the 5th to the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. You can pay your statement balance, and that's paying it off every month. Your statement balance is usually going to be, or should be, a little bit less than your current balance, because your current balance will include your statement balance plus anything that you charged in the 10 days it took the statement to come to you.
Yes.
These days, the statement is usually delivered by email or paperless. It doesn't take as long, but also the charges post more quickly when we actually charge, because we used to have these little paper charge slips. So all of it had to go through the actual mail. It was on paper, and it had to go through the actual mail, and it had to be data entered on the other side. So all of that took longer. Anyway, pay off your statement balance or pay off your current balance. Doesn't really matter. If you haven't been paying off your balance this whole time, your current balance then will include any past balance, your actual statement balance for the 30-day period, your new charges, and any fees and penalties and stuff like that. So if you pay off your current balance, your account immediately goes to zero. If you pay off your statement balance, your account goes to lower. So it kind of depends on what else you've spent and stuff like that. So if you're just paying off your statement balance, you might still have, let's say you've got a $10,000 credit card and your statement balance was $4,000, but you've charged another $1,000. So when you pay off your statement balance, it'll go down by $4,000 and you've still got the $1,000. But the $1,000 in principal that you've charged is not accruing interest yet because it's still in its current billing cycle. Right. So either one, statement balance or current balance, whichever one you want to pay, but as long as you are paying one of those, when you set up auto pay, so if you've tied it into your bank account so that it's automatically paid, you can, usually that's an option to say that you want to pay the minimum balance automatically, the statement balance automatically, or the current balance automatically.
Can I give like a blanket statement here?
Yeah.
Don't ever pay the minimum balance.
Absolutely.
Don't ever pay.
Absolutely.
If you do the math, right? A lot of
on
times,
statements you will find now they're required to put a little thing of if you just pay the minimum balance.
28 years.
Right.
It'll be something
28 years.
ridiculous.
And by the way, you've ended up paying 500% of the actual principal. It's absurd.
Even if it's minimum balance plus 50 plus 100. If you're in that spot, you got to make an effort to do more than the minimum balance, because the long game, you're going to win the long game. It's going to, is it going to hit the purse strings in the beginning? Definitely.
Absolutely.
I understand it. I've been there. I understand. But I'm telling you, if you can have the discipline to just do a little bit more, what it does for you in the long run, you can't calculate it. You can't see it right now, but it makes a huge difference. Okay.
Right. If you are starting fresh, though, pay your statement balance or your current balance, depending on your own finances and what you can do. But those are the ones you want to be paying from the beginning.
Yes.
If you want to be building good credit, those are the ones to pay.
Yep. And also too, when we talk, just a quick little aside, and I'm sure people know this, but when people pull your credit report to buy a house or to buy a car, there's the credit to income ratio, right? Or your debt to income ratio. And so they look on there, if you have high balances on your card, so maybe you are paying them off every month, the whole thing. But like, if you have a $10,000 card, but there's $7,000 on there, they're going to go, that's kind of a lot, right? You typically want to keep that between 10 and 15% max, right? Which is just your leftover from paying your statement every single month.
Because really what you want the credit card for, you want it to build credit. And yes, we can one day talk about the irony of, in order to build your credit score, you actually need to go into risk debt. That's part, in one sense, it makes sense because, well, credit companies want to know how you're going to act when you're in debt, which is where what's the credit score is about, really. But the other part is, wait. So in order to get a credit score that I need to do some of these bigger purchases like a car and a house, I actually have to, you're encouraging me to go into debt? That's, it's a bit much. And I forgot where I was going with that.
So segment 2, we talked, I use the terminology secured credit card. You use debit card. So break that down for us. I just sprinkled a little bit on there, but give us the real deal here.
So a debit card is basically when you say, all right, here's my budget. Let's say I'm going to use this credit card. I'm going to use this card. I don't want to go out and, cash for everything because that's a pain. And then also it's a risk to carry cash around. So I want a card that I can do all of that stuff with ease, but I want to be able to budget it, so I've gone through and I've made my household budget and I know I need to have $200 for gas. I need to have $200 for groceries. I need to have $200 for clothes. And I'm just trying to make this real simple. So that's $600 then plus, let's call it another $200 for incidentals. So that's $800. So I'm going to get a debit card that runs $800 a month.
Yep.
And that way, whenever I go to whenever I go to put the card in, and it just takes off, okay, I charged $40 for that gas. So it takes the $40 away from the $800. And it will stop. Like, you can't overspend the $800. You would have to recharge the card. You'd have to go add more money to the card.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
And that is, again, you have skin in the game already at that point.
Right. There's no interest on these cards.
Nope.
It once again makes it much, much easier to budget because you can go through your household budget, look at, okay, well, rent, that's coming out auto pay, my salary check, that goes auto deposit. So you can look at your stuff that comes in, you can look at what goes auto out, and then you can look at what you actually need to, carry around a card to do. And you can put that money on that card at the beginning, and then you can't overspend that. Yep. Without consciously having to say, I've got to add more money to it, or I have to go to the bank and pull money out of my account. Like, it makes it more difficult to overspend.
Yeah. The worst thing with these cards is that you go buy your Goo Goo Dolls CD, and then you get up and you swipe your card and you can't buy it because it gets declined, right? Because you overspent. Like, that's the worst thing that's going to happen.
Shoot, I didn't have that money to buy the Goo Goo Dolls CD.
I guess Dizzy Up the Girl's going to have to wait, right? And you put it back and you say, okay, thanks. Sorry. We're just thinking through this, and I'm thinking I actually can remember myself being in the store, because it was kind of a banner moment for me, but it was not the Goo Goo Dolls CD that I first bought. And I'm about to expose myself because I think people are going to get a good laugh out of this.
What was it?
It was
a Star Wars video game.
No.
Okay.
It was Ace of Base. The Sign.
Wow.
Okay.
You saw the sign and it opened up your mind.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I saw the bank coming at me with like, give me my money. You know what I mean? But now that I'm putting myself back into being 18 years old, the Ace of Base CD is what did me in. And I think probably the Goo Goo Dolls was
wow.
like a subsequent purchase, and maybe I even went back after. I was like, that was so easy.
That was so easy. Let me do it again.
And then I went and bought like Auntie Anne's pretzels and went up to the food court.
Yep, quicker, easier, more seductive. It feels like free money. And then you get the bill at the end and it says, oh yeah, you charged $4,000, but you only owe $48 as a minimum payment. And you're like, oh, this is awesome.
I love this. Yeah, no.
You're not actually paying attention to the line that keeps growing,
No. So debit cards / secured credit cards, whatever nomenclature you want to use, it's the same thing. That is 100% the way to go. Okay, so the old and the new?
Well, no, hold on. We've still got a few details on because there's a different type of debit card. So because you can have a debit card where you've made an account or you've put money on that card. Okay. So whatever money you put on that card is what you can pull out. Okay. I haven't heard this term used in a long time, but it's I think what most people actually end up doing, and it's a tad riskier, it's a little harder to budget, they're charge cards. So this is your debit card. So you have opened a checking account or a savings account. But go ahead and open a checking account, I think, because you want the flexibility of having checks. We'll get to that in a second. So the bank offers you a charge card to go. That charge card taps directly into your bank account. So the limit on that card is how much you have in the bank. Okay. So unlike a debit card where you say, okay, I have a card that I've put $800 on for these expenses. Okay. But let's say you planned on saving $200 every month and stuff. Well, that $200 is still in your savings account. So actually, that first month, your your charge card would be able to not only tap the $800 that you have earmarked for your expenses, but also that $200 that you have earmarked for savings, which might be a problem if you go to impulse buy the Ace of Base CD.
Oh, no.
I'm switching to Ace of Base now, darling. That's the way it goes. Exactly. So it's a little easier to overspend on a charge card, but they are by far more convenient because you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have, so again, when we're doing household budgeting and we're doing personal finance, especially early on when you're trying, convenience is not your friend.
No.
Matter of fact, let's do a little tip here. When you are first starting out, make your finances a little inconvenient. Make your money a little bit hard to get a hold of so that you have, because if nothing else, you're going in and you're impulse buying something at the thrift store or whatever. Or I totally can afford that couch or whatever. And it is an impulse buy. It's, oh shoot, but I don't have the money in my debit account to do it. I don't have cash with me. I don't have a check. Okay. So I can't pay for it today. I have to go to the bank and I have to, do a transfer. I have to log on to my bank account and I have to do a transfer so that I'll have money on that debit card so that I could actually pay for it. In that cool off time, that 24, because now you've left the store and you're slightly, I can't believe I did that. But in that 24 hours, you might decide, oh my gosh, that was an impulse buy. And I hadn't even measured the space to see if the couch would fit. And it turns out it won't. You would be surprised at how much less you might spend just because you've got that cooling off. You don't have the impulse option.
Yes, definitely.
So early on, make your finances mildly inconvenient. It will force you to look at them more. It will force you to deal with them more, which will make your building budgeting habits easier.
When I was a server, everything's in tips, right? And this was before you would write your tips on the slip, right? You
would leave the $5 on the table, or you would put it in the tip jar.
I may have even mentioned this before, but I would budget my money in envelopes, right? I have an envelope and say, okay, this is for rent, this is for groceries. You want to talk about making it inconvenient? You couldn't crack open an envelope. You're like, well, man, I really want those pair of Nikes, But then you crack open the envelope and there's only $20 and the Nikes cost $80. Right. It's a no-go. Right. It's a no-go. So yes, do whatever you have to do to make sure that you don't make impulse buying decisions.
Whatever that looks like. By the way, if you have any elders in your family or in your circle, in your mentor pack that are telling you to try and be cash-based, or they're telling you all of these old-fashioned ways, it's not that they're really wedded to the old-fashioned way. It was the old-fashioned way was a little bit more inconvenient, so it killed the impulse. It killed some of the impulse.
Yes.
They were still able to do impulsive buys, but you have to You have to work at it a little bit.
You have to really want it, you know.
And when you're first starting out, you've got your first job, you've got your first rent, and things are tighter. You did one or two impulses and can toast you for the month.
Yep. And then you get slapped with, I need brakes and I need a timing belt. Right. And then that's $700 and you're.
Oh, and by the way, now you've the credit card that you've kept for emergencies for, oh my gosh, my 4 tires just got slashed. And so now, I mean, that's the other thing that
your tires got slashed. Did you make someone upset, Leslie? No. You came up pretty quick with that story.
No, I had to get my tires changed and I was thinking about changing, but I was thinking of something more. So you're in a car accident. Sure. And suddenly now, and you need to meet your deductible. Okay. That's the kind of thing that you have the credit card for, and that you might run a little bit of credit for a month or two if you get into this bind. That's okay. Building credit and emergency purchases. But if you've gone off and you've used that credit cushion for impulsive stuff, not only have you, gotten compound interest to work against you, but you don't have any room for forgiveness when the emergency comes, the big thing comes, and you're like, well, crap, I don't have any give.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, no question. I think if you're going to take one thing away from this episode, it's building credit and emergency purposes, emergency funds, right? We've talked about paying your statement balance and all that sort of stuff, and that is critically important. But you get hit with a timing belt, you get hit with an alternator, you get hit with something in the house, right? You don't look at that and go, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to find this extra $4,000. Right. Okay, that's a charge. And then you make a plan. You go back to our personal budgeting, right? That we talked about in Money 101. You say, okay, now I have to say, I need to put X amount of dollars per month toward this thing. And then you're out of it. And then it's good. And you're fine. That's what they're there for. Correct. It's not that the credit cards are evil. It's that if the intent and use of it can be a little evil in the sense of like, ooh, that felt good, right?
And it's easy. It's easy. Yeah. So doing some of this stuff the old way is not about, oh gosh, the old way is just better. It's about making a little more. So it's not as easy.
Yes.
It's not as easy.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. Now, segment 3.
Now segment 3. There you go.
Okay. The old and the new, checking accounts and cash apps. Take it away.
All right. Checking accounts, our checks are really like super slow charge cards. Okay, so your checks are tied into your checking account, so your full savings account, and you set it up like a savings account, except that the bank will also ask you to sign a signature card. How about that? Like there really used to be. You would go into the bank and they would get the checks in for the day. That would, because all of the checks from this bank would be delivered to that bank. So then some teller person would have hundreds of checks to go through, and their job is to actually pull it out and make sure that the signature on the signature card matches the signature on the check.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, I think now a lot of it's done electronically and through electronic recognition, but that used to. So this is a very, very slow method of using the charge card. Because, and most of you, I hope, know how to fill out a check. So your check, it looks kind of like a dollar bill, about the size of a dollar bill. And it has the date up at the top. You put the date that you're actually filling the check out. Generally bad form to predate or post-date it, but that's beyond the scope of this. Put the date that you're filling it out. You put the to line, okay? The payable to has to be... Paid
to the order of.
Right. Paid to the order of has to be it has to be the company's name or the person's full name. It has to match the name on their bank account. Yes. Because that's how the bank's going to recognize this is who I send it to.
Yes.
Okay? And then you have the line or the little box where you put in the number. And then, if you have bad handwriting like me, you can see, you have to write it out.
You sure do.
You have to write it out. So all of those times that your teacher was making you write out, and you're like, why in the world am I going to need to write out the actual numbers and know when the hyphen goes and the hundreds or the tens or whatever else? This is why. Because this is how we used to do. You had to write checks. So if $150, you would have to write out 150 or 150, and then the and is for the cents.
That's right.
Right. And you can actually, the cents, you can actually write the actual numbers as a fraction. So you can write 50 over 100 for 50 cents.
Yep, exactly.
Right. So, but everything else has to be the word.
Yep.
And the more you know how to do the words, the easier. Yeah. Because otherwise then your checks get kicked back because my handwriting is bad enough that I've actually had people that I've paid checks to have to bring the check back to me because the teller couldn't read it.
Yeah, or I have lost many a check because as I'm sure I have said in the course of our 50 some odd episodes now that I have dyslexia, and so the word 100 for me sometimes can get a little dicey. And I have lost many a check because I misspelt it, So yeah, you got to know, you got to write that out, and then
then you sign.
Yep. Well, the memo.
The memo line is where you would put like, this is for, reimbursing my friend for dinner or this
mortgage,
mortgage, rent, whatever it's
car
for.
payment, know. It's really more for you because typically underneath and after, then you have the signature line at the bottom, and then usually underneath there's a carbon copy, right? Of these are the checks that you wrote. You know what I mean? I think you don't have to get those anymore, but I would encourage you to get them.
Well, and that's one of the things. You used to get them because it would make it easier to balance your checkbook. We used to balance checkbooks manually. So when you got in your checkbook, you also got a register that was basically like a little dollar-sized Excel sheet, essentially. Okay? And you would write the date, the check number. Checks are all numbered. They're sequentially numbered in their books. And it was one of the things, if you were a good check person, you kept them in order. The number order doesn't matter that much anymore. I don't think anybody cares. No. But back in the day, it was a thing. You wrote check. Usually checkbooks would come starting with the number 50. So it didn't look like you were like you were brand new, but 50, 51, 52. And they came in sets of 50. So then you got to, or was it 25?
50.
50. Okay. So then you get to 100 and you have to get a new checkbook out, right? But on that little dollar-sized Excel spreadsheet, you would have to write the date, the check number, who the check was to, how much it was for. And then there were two boxes for, I can't remember exactly how it was set up. There were two boxes for the balance. So you would start, let's say you put $10,000 in your checking account. Okay. Everybody, this is how to balance a checkbook. You put $10,000 in your checking account, and then I write a $50 check to Ryan to reimburse him for the camera thing that one of my daughters broke, which, okay. Now
that is a true story.
Yeah, that's a true story. We're going to do it by Venmo now, but you get the idea. Yeah. So I write him $50. So then I would fill that out on the thing, and then I would bring the $50 up. So I take the $10,000 minus 50. So I would now have $9,050, and that would be my new balance. And you would just you can see this when you go into your banking app. Your banking app keeps your check register basically keeps your debit and account register basically like a checkbook balancing.
Yes.
Right. So as you write checks or as you make charges or as you tell them to do auto pays, it comes out. So you start with your $10,000 and then we take it away, and then we add your salary on the first of the month, and then we take it away. That's how you used to balance checks. Again, if you were a good checkbook balancer, you did that every time you wrote a check. Like you would do it as you went along. Sometimes people try to be a little more efficient, and they would do it once a week, but this used to be like when you went to the grocery store, there was a little platform that you pulled out, so instead of the screens now that we have for COVID or the little, the devices that stick up, to stick in your debit cards and stuff like that. No, there was a little pull out, and it was a check writing platform.
Yep.
And you would sit there and you would write your check. They would tell you, okay, your groceries are $88.12. You'd write out the check for $88.12, hand it to the HEB lady while she's printing out your receipt and stuff. You would go ahead and write it in your check register and balance it, close it up, put it in your purse. Done. Now that is such, I'm like, I'm like, lots of stores will say you can't write checks anymore because it takes too long.
Two things. Okay. Number one, if Granny Smith Apple gets in front of me and busts out a check for her $270 worth of groceries, we're going to have an issue.
Yes.
Because oh my gosh. That's that's when you see the people in the line, that one line's moving like so fast and then you're okay. That's one thing. Yeah. That bad forms of you writing checks. If you have another alternative in a space
like
where
I
people
said,
are behind
most
you.
stores I know of have actually, they won't take checks anymore, and it's mostly for the speed, and also the speed on the other side, because then
Yes.
they have to keep the checkbooks or the checks in a separate portion of their cash drawer or till, and then they have to send it so checks take 3 days to clear, and that's if they're moving quickly.
Yep.
Whereas, your debit card, your charge card, or any of the apps take 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the other thing is that you're going get salary and you're going take it away. And in my mind, I was like, give it away now. It's like Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yes.
Did you buy that CD too?
I can guarantee it. I bought the whole store. Okay. I had to censor myself there. I have a lot of anxiety wrapped up in that time of my life. It was just like bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And but those are the wilderness years, and we put those behind us. Anyway, okay, so we covered filling out a check.
The banking apps.
Yep.
So that's basically, banking apps are basically a check register. Now, I might recommend go ahead and do go through and do the math with your banking app for at least a month or two, just so you know how it's done.
Yep.
Just so you get an idea. I mean, kind of get a feel for it. Once again, it's not about the inconvenience of it. It's about, do it the analog way so you kind of know how it's done, and then go back to, and then you can enjoy the convenience that you have instead of letting the convenience kind of take you, so that you can just, I feel like I can, my goodness, I just got this, check. Well, this is just great. Now I can go off it, and you've totally forgotten that your auto pay for your credit card comes up on the 5th.
Exactly.
So you got paid on the 2nd, and then on the 3rd, you found something, you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got plenty of money, but you've forgotten about your auto pay for your credit card, and oh shoot, now you're overdrawn.
Yeah, now you're in trouble. And I would recommend, because you don't have to balance your checkbook anymore. I think a lot of times people lose sight that maybe they don't go into their banking, their checking accounts, their banking accounts, and look at it visually every day.
Right.
And I'm telling you, those things are not perfect.
No, they're not.
Right. Double charges, getting charged more. Like one of the best examples is you go to a restaurant, you leave a tip, and the tip has an extra 0 on it all of a sudden. Right. Like these things happen. So it's very important. You don't have to balance your checkbook every day, but you should have eyes on it every day, because these little things can happen. And it's one thing to take care of one of these things before it posts. Usually when you swipe your card, you have a posted transaction, and you have a pending transaction, right? So it usually takes a couple days for something to go from pending into posted. Very easy to deal with things that are in the pending.
Right.
A whole different story where they're in the posted. Okay.
Exactly. So now you've got to file. You've got to file certain claims. Yep. They have to open an investigation.
It's a
Whereas
whole thing.
if it's pending, it's
they just
not to
it
mention
right
the fact, if you're looking at it on a more regular basis, it's fresh in your mind. Wait a second, I didn't leave a $200 tip.
Yeah.
I left a $20
exactly.
tip. Or
Yep.
Exactly. Or I didn't leave. I left a $2 tip, not a $12 tip, or whatever it is. Or wait a second.
Why do I have 2 charges for $63.23? Right.
And sometimes it's as simple as, you double clicked on the thing when you weren't supposed to double click on the thing.
Absolutely.
The other one that can get you is you made a charge, and for what we're used to, charges going through relatively quickly. The pending cycle is not that long anymore. So let's say you make one at a brick and mortar business, but it doesn't go through. So, and then you go to make a bigger purchase 2 days later, and in your head, you think that $200 purchase you made at the other place has already gone through. So you do a quick check on your app, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got plenty of money for that. But you don't, because the $200 purchase hasn't posted yet.
Maybe their internet down. Maybe they didn't reconcile that night.
So again, especially when you are early on starting out, look at your banking stuff often. Go ahead and do some of it manual until you get at least the rhythm of, okay, I have my mortgage or my rent set to come out of my check, out of my account on the 2nd of every month. I have my power bill coming out on the 3rd of every month. And I actually tend to stack them all. Like mine all come out by the 5th. So by the 5th, I know everything's
free and clear.
Yeah, everything's out. All of my auto payments are out. Because also, if you have your credit card set to auto pay, guess what? Your credit card's not going to be the same amount every month. I mean, it's very rare that you would be charging the exact same things, right? So you need to know when that chunk gets paid.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift gears here.
Okay.
Cash apps.
Cash apps.
Tying to your checking account or to your credit card. Why should you have it to your... Why does it make a difference? Does it matter?
Because most of the time when you have tied PayPal or Apple Pay or anything else to a credit card so that it gets paid out of a credit card, they'll charge you 3%.
Yes, they sure do.
Right. So if you tie it to your bank account, basically now it works like it's a charge card app, essentially is what it is. But if it goes directly to your bank, you don't, for once in a while I've seen something where there's like $1 fee on each transaction or something like that. But usually when it's tied directly to your bank, you don't have any fees for doing it that way. If it's charged to your credit card, you get 3%. So now on top of the interest that you're paying, you're also paying 3% for the transaction.
Double dipping. So I mean, I have a lot of experience because I use a lot of these apps for my job. And so there is, again, being quick can be seductive.
Absolutely.
And I can get...
Because the credit cards are faster.
Yep.
It's easier to set up. Because, again, on your checks, when you go to... If you want to tie any of these apps to your checking account, then you're going to need your bank routing number and your account number, which are not as easily accessible as the plastic card. And, you can most likely, most of you can probably more quickly come up with your American Express or MasterCard number
100%.
than you can with your...
ABA routing number.
ABA routing number, that's your banking routing number, and your bank account number.
And a 30-second commercial break, the routing number are on your check. If you look at any of your checks, on the bottom left-hand corner,
there's that old 80s kind of graphic type.
And it's the first, I think it's like usually
11
6.
digit.
Is it? Or
Well, I mean, it's got lots of zeros in it.
But then there'll be brackets.
Right.
And then after that will be your account number.
Right.
So if you ever need to go in and fill something out and you're like, I don't have my statement, it's on your credit card or it's on your check.
On your checks.
Yep.
When you're getting a new job and they're like, do you want to do an auto deposit? There are so many times you're going to need that information. When you're setting up one of your cash apps, if you want to tie it to your bank account, then you need your routing number and your account number.
All the things.
And it saves you 3%.
Yep. Whereas if I'm signing up on the Cash App, it's like, oh, look, Google remembers that I use that credit card. Click, and it's in there, right?
Right.
And so let me just talk really quickly about someone that uses cash apps, Venmo, Zelle, PayPal very often.
By the way, do you hate Zelle?
I like it if it's from the same bank. If it's from Wells Fargo, Wells Fargo to Wells Fargo, I like it. Every other but if it's not that, I would rather use something else.
Yeah, it's a pain. Anyway.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of steps, right? It's like, oh my gosh.
Precisely. How many steps can there be? Okay.
So again, I get paid, let's say I get paid $320 for a monthly lesson. And I can have that cash right now for a measly 1%. 1%. I can have that right? If I do that for
$3 for less than $350, I can have it right now.
But I can tell you that if I did that for every single student I had and and then I multiplied that over the course of the year, and then I multiplied that over the course of the entire time that I've been teaching, I would have lost a significant amount of money.
Yes.
Wait the 1 to 3 days. Right.
We're talking about a 5-digit sum of money for just a couple of years worth of.
So you wait the day. And here's a sneaky little tip. If you do it in the morning, it gets into your account by the end of the day. They don't ever advertise that. They'll always say, well, could take up to 3 days. No, it comes by the end of the day almost every single time. I know because I'm always looking.
Because you tested.
I have looked. Okay, let's wrap it up. What else do we have for the fine folks? I'm reading through really quickly because I just looked at the timer and oddly enough, 50 minutes. Seriously.
Okay, whatever. I don't know why I'm surprised at this point.
No.
All right.
What fun though. What a fun episode.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're having fun talking about credit cards.
It's kind of like nice to reminisce and go, boy, I was such a jerk when I was younger. And now at least I kind of have half a cent. You know what I mean? I know what's going on now. So it's good. It's good. Hopefully this helps with the future. And then if you're in a spot, remember, turn around and face it. But emergency purposes, That's the key
It's
here.
for building credit and emergency purposes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And also just get 1 or 2 for that exact. Don't have, this can also damage your credit score if you end up with like 5 credit cards open at any given time. Even if you don't have anything on them, they're like, because you have the potential to be exposed to crushing debt if you have that many open credit cards. So credit scores don't like that. You don't need more than 1 or 2.
Nope. And also age of accounts matter. I mean, that's a podcast for another time about building your credit score. That would actually be a great one. But that's another little thing is age of account.
Building your credit score. We should do that. And especially since they've just changed. They've done, haven't looked into it in detail, but they've just changed something about how you build credit. Yeah.
So we'll have to check that. We'll have to, that would be a good one. Anyway, age of accounts matter. Even if you pay off a credit card, don't close it just to close it. That is just damaging. It'll only hurt you, not help you. Even though you think like I paid it off, close it, right? Just cut the card up and forget about it. And that'll be it. Okay. Anything else?
I think I'm good.
Nada. Time to shill.
Okay, you go. You go with the shilling. I don't do the shilling.
If you're listening to us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, please like, share, subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell your friends. Tell us to come listen and hang out. We have a good time here. I actually think this was a lot of fun. I mean, it has had some good
questions.
laughs.
We're happy to answer follow-ups.
Thank you. You know what I think we might start doing?
What?
New people that subscribe on the website, I think we should start at the end of the episode. We'll start thanking them for subscribing to the website.
Thank you, new people.
Yes. So we have had an influx of new subscribers on the website, like a lot more than normal. And so someone obviously is liking what we're doing.
There we go.
And I think that would be kind of a fun idea. So that'll be something because we got to put that list together anyway. Yep. So anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube, I know. How are we so attractive? I can't believe it. I know she's rolling her eyes. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. You guys know the deal. Thank you so much for all the support from the beginning of time till right now. Y'all have been awesome. I've been Ryan Talon.
And I have been Leslie Loftus.
And we'll see you in the next one. Take care, y'all.
Bye, guys.